Welcome to the Prosperity Profiles podcast, sponsored by Prosperity Profilers, LLC. They'll help you look prosperous, feel prosperous, and be prosperous. We hope you listen often, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. Now here's your host, four-time #1 best-selling author, speaker, and business coach, Holly Porter.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show today. It's going to be a little bit different. I'm actually getting interviewed on another show, actually a LA talk show that's TV. And I just wanted to play that for one of my podcasts. And sometimes, we get guests and sometimes we are the guests. So in this particular show you'll be listening to, I'm the guest and Katrina Casillas is interviewing me. So listen up and I hope you learned something. Enjoy.
You're listening to LA 40 with Katerina Casillas, only on LA Talk Radio.
All right, Los Angeles, we are back, and I am really excited about our guest for today. Hi, everyone. If you're new, I am your host, Katerina Casillas, here on LA Talk Radio and TV with the show LA 40. And today we have a colleague, both on the author side, the speaker side, the podcasting side, and a friend of mine whom I've had the pleasure of speaking and sharing stage time with her very recently. Miss Holly Porter is on the line with us. Holly, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Excellent. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Holly is the host of the podcast Prosperity Profilers podcast. And what I love about what you do, Holly, is you are in the world of inspiration, motivation, transformation, and all things excessively amazing energy. You talk about something called looking prosperous, feeling prosperous, and being prosperous. And on that note, I'd love for you to share prosperity wisdom with our audience.
Yeah. Well, I used to get told all the time, focus on one thing. We hear that all the time. And for people like me, which there's a lot of other people like me, I know now that I'm not alone. We have, a lot of energy, and it's really hard to focus on one thing when you want to do so many different things. And so I rebranded my company to Prosperity Profilers and went with that. Like, I teach people how to have multiple streams of income and being recession resistant and closing the gap to prosperity. And it feels great.
Well, I love what you do, and I want to touch on that for a moment because, multiple streams of income is something that is incredibly important, especially in a time, because let's be honest, times have changed, right? We're no longer in the 50s and the 60s where you had a corporate job and you made sure that, you stayed there for 35, 40 years, and at the end of your time, you had not only a gold watch, but a 401k plan. That entire thing is sort of going by the wayside, by the way of the dinosaurs. And I feel that it's really important for people to recognize that, number one, it's business smarts to set up multiple streams of income. But number two, to touch on something that you said, it's also a lot of fun. And so I'd love to hear in your words how it is that you support people in doing just that.
Well, first of all, I work mostly with people who already have, an income. So I say, get your cash cow, get it in order so you have your bills being paid, then focus on something else. So it's a little bit different than just one thing. Get your one thing working for you well. I also help people understand that once you have that cash cow and you work on your side gig or whatever you want to call it to build that up, maybe when the recession comes, those can flip-flop. So maybe now your cash cow is your side gig and your side gig is your cash cow during a recession. Like, for instance, we were in real estate and construction, in the big 2008 recession. And gosh, we had $1 million in assets we lost. And I know that's the same story you hear from a lot of people, so it was starting all over. But that's where I thought, gosh, I've got to figure this out because I don't ever want to be on that side of the fence again. So let's learn something from this and let's figure it out. And I know nobody wants to hear about, recession, that's like not a nice word. And at the same time, if you can get recession resistant, then when it comes, you're prepared. And so that's really what I'm just helping educate people to get ready. It's coming. Statistically, it's there. So look at the history. We're way past due. It's great that we haven't had it again, but it is coming. So are you ready would be my question.
Well, and that's a great question to ask. What I love is you're an 8-time best-selling author. You've written 12 books in total. And, you know, for those of us that did go through the 2008 recession, I understand what you're talking about. I mean, I woke up at one point and 50% of my real estate value had disappeared, you know, in a matter of 6 weeks. My equity in my stocks had just tumbled. The savings that I had was fine, and yet over the 2 years post 2008 started to dwindle. And you're right, we're going into 2020 and haven't seen a dip in a little while. And so that's a smart message to share with people. Although, you know, you want to be careful that you don't want to be a fear monger, but you do want to be putting yourself and setting yourself up for a way to win. What's one of the first things you advise people that you work with to do with respect to setting themselves up to be recession resistant?
I think getting organized with all your financials in the beginning. You know, if you've got debt you've got to, you know, work a way at, then let's get a plan for that. You know, I don't particularly have my own system because I believe, like I have my own little personality profiling I do, for instance. You know, it's with shoes. If you were a shoe, what kind of shoe would you be? It's just a twist on the same 4 basic personality styles that are out there. I don't believe in creating something new when something that exists isn't broken, right? So there's a lot of financial things out there that people can grab onto and get themselves out of debt. So I think to start, you know, if that's part of the plan, that extra income stream, and you don't have to invest a lot of money. I mean, look, there's a lot of things you can do to start a business now, especially with online marketing and, you know, all those things out there that you don't have to have a big investment like before. I mean, I've had 9 startup companies. So I've had brick and mortar, I've had retail, I've had network marketing. I mean, I've done them all. And, you know, there's some were big investments and some were hardly any. So it really just depends what fits you. And that's the main thing, is figuring out like where you're going to fit that's going to feel good. Because I've done most everything I've ever done. I don't wake up unhappy in the morning. You know, I feel like there's a lot worse things. Finding your happiness is the biggest thing for me. And if it's not fun, I'm not doing it. It's my motto. So, you know, if it's not fun anymore, stop it. Like, figure it out. If it's your job and that's what you've got to do until you create something better, then get creating something better. But do it. Just start. And so that's a few things that I work on with people on.
Well, and what I love, and you know, when I had heard you speak on stage, one of the things that ignited me was the fact that you were sharing exactly this. And I think it's a massive fallacy that society has put on us, which says, you know, you're supposed to not like your job. It's supposed to be difficult. You're supposed to be in fear. You're supposed to be in scarcity. And I don't believe life is supposed to be like that. I think we absolutely can wake up in the morning, have a passion for what we do, share our gifts and our talents, work with people that we actually genuinely enjoy. And you know what, then it doesn't become work. It becomes a passion that you literally are simply spending time on. And because of that, you're elevating and vibing at a higher vibe. Those around you are elevating and vibing at a higher vibe. And life just continues to flow in a way that is easier and more effortless. And what I love about you is your entire aura encompasses that. So thank you for getting yourself there.
Well, thank you. Oh, it's a work in progress. Trust me. I don't say I'm there. I'm getting there. Always getting there.
Now, you're a mom. What is the one piece of advice you're giving to your kids these days?
Oh, my gosh. Set yourself up for success. So it's interesting because we have 8 kids, and they're all over the place. Like, they in business, you know, some went to school, some are entrepreneurs. Most are entrepreneurs, I will say, because they followed that lead, and they're hard workers. And, you know, it doesn't mean you have to work hard to be successful, but if you're willing to work hard, you know, set yourself up for success in the beginning. So, you know, people that are willing to put the work in the beginning get to, you know, prosper in the end, right? Most of the time. So the kids, really, it's just I think right now, figuring out a way to set yourself up for retirement when you're in 27, I feel like it's the sweet spot. If you get a kid when they're 27 to start saving for their retirement, they don't get it because they think they're young and they know everything right because they're millennials. It's like, if you could get that instilled to them, so save $5 a week if that's what it takes. Whatever. I think that's what I'm most sorry that I didn't do. I didn't have that instilled with me. I mean, I grew up, my father was a mason and he owned a huge masonry company, but it was feast or famine because it's construction. And I've always been an entrepreneur. So it's like a lot of my things come in chunks. When I did real estate sales, you get the chunk. And so it's like it's hard to put a budget.
And then I was going to say that you could have a famine for 2-3 months, or I suppose it's not a famine, but it's a dry spell, and you've got to be able to budget that money. There's something I love that you talked about with the 27-year-olds, because, they forget that there is this thing called compound interest, and something as little as the $5 a week over time will absolutely, mount up. So I think that's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's really important for them to learn that young.
Well, Gary Vee talks about something that I really appreciate, and for those of you that follow Gary Vaynerchuk, he talks about how one of the biggest fallacies, again, has been that instead of getting people to focus on their strength, what we do is we reprimand them for their weaknesses, and we get them to put their effort into bringing those weaknesses up to sort of an average level. So you have a kid who's fantastic at math but terrible in English. They'll have an A in math and a C- in English, and we'll say to them, oh, you've got to get that English score up. And what we'll do is we'll deviate their attention from where their genius lies. We'll get them to put focus and energy into something they don't really love, they're not really good at, they're not really motivated by, and all of a sudden we're turning around and we have a society of people that are playing it mediocre because we haven't, as a collective society, said, hey, you're a genius in this area, you clearly have a passion for what you do, how can we support that? And what I love about the work that you do is you look for that genius in people and you figure out a way to support it.
And you want to know how?
Yeah, I'd love to know how.
All right, it's really easy. That's where I started doing the personality profiling. And I studied a whole bunch of different programs, which really there's your basic 4. And so honestly, and it was a learning experience for me because so I didn't actually birth all 8 of my children. I did raise 8 children. When Scott and I married each other, we each had 4, 2 girls, 2 boys from 6.5 to 19 years old.
So it was like the Brady Bunch on steroids. I love it.
Yeah, except we didn't, anyway. Yes, so we had a whole bunch in there. Well, for me, it was always like, I want my kids to have everything I didn't get to have. I want them to do this and I want them to do that. Well, then it was forced. It was like his kids were really calm, just like my husband. I'm hyper. My kids are mostly hyper, and so it was like you're throwing all these opposite personalities into the same house. And this happens all the time. I mean, our divorce rate, isn't it like 55% now? So obviously I'm not speaking to people that don't get it, that have, combined families. So trying to figure out what is going to make all of this work. And so, you say, if I knew then what I know now, part of me, I'm saying that because totally. I would have treated like my girls, they're all totally opposite personalities of me. And so it's really hard. They have a primary and a secondary. So maybe one of them has my primary as a secondary, So here I am forcing all these things to make them successful that wasn't their style. And so when you say genius is figuring out what's going to make your child thrive. If you're forcing them to go to college or get good grades and they're techie, hands-on techie, I mean like auto mechanics or, other things that don't have to have that kind of schooling, their trade schools, they're going to thrive in that because that's their genius. So you force them to go to college and they're going to graduate maybe with C's because you forced them to go and they didn't love it. And so that part goes back to that whole, you got to love what you do. And if you figure out your career path and your life path and they both align and you love what you do, win-win.
Win-win, big time. You talked about shoe profiling. I love that. What type of shoe are you?
Oh, I actually, every one I take, I'm too strong, and they're usually, depends on the day, right? Multi-personality. Just kidding.
Right.
So in mine, I'm either a sneaker or a boot sneaker. And they're both, like, these all have energy levels to them as well. And because I have a beauty industry background for, I dare say 35 years now, then all of those coordinate with seasons. And so I don't write about that in my book. I always just share that when I'm speaking, that if you ever want to know like what colors to wear that go with that shoe style, come talk to me because I can hook you up and tell you the best time to shop.
There you go. I love that. You have me all intrigued now. I'm going to have to do the prosperity profiling and figure out where that lies.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're a heel, and that's not because you wear heels. Like I always share with people when I'm speaking, there's always a couple in the audience that get stuck when we do the quiz. They get stuck on what shoe they are. But I wear flip-flops, and none of these are flip-flops. And I'm like, finally, I get people in the audience that get so annoyed with it. They'll look at them, and I don't even have to say anything else. And they'll be like, remember, it's not about the shoe.
That's hilarious. Well, it's funny because I do wear heels a lot. So, it's one of those.
And that would be a winner in mine. Mine, it would be a winter season, which is your jewels, which is your crayon box colors.
Well, and I was going to say, it's funny that I must have been feeling that vibe today because I'm wearing a jewel tone, sort of a ruby red today. And I must have been feeling your energy coming into today's show. So, Holly, you have a history of business success, business experience. Do you see a trend coming down the pipe that people should be paying attention to? Or again, is it more about what they're being drawn to? What do you advise?
Okay, so I think even with trends, you can figure out your niche in that trend. Does that make sense? So like let's use digital marketing and apps, all that stuff online, and video marketing. We know those are not going away. Those are going to get bigger and better. They're just coming. So embrace it. If you're not doing video, guys, first of all, why not?
Right.
Second of all, get on it. Be an action taker. But those things are coming up. And so see what works for you. If you're like, oh, I really don't want to do video. Okay, you can hire someone to do video. But if you want to do an online type of business, your face doesn't have to be on it, right? You can sit back and be the one collecting the money and have a face for your business. There's so many ways that you can succeed. So somebody who, for instance, the shoes match up with introvert and extrovert. There's 2 and 2. So if you know you're an introvert, then maybe not getting on camera and doing a TV show like you do,
is the best thing.
Isn't your thing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So figure out what your thing is, and it goes back to does it feel good? Like if you can feel good and make money at it, why not?
What do you think is one of the biggest things that holds people back from business success?
I think that also goes with their personality style. The biggest answer I would say, and the easiest answer would be fear. We're all conditioned to have fear about things. I mean, even people that have done all of their personal development and all of their work for years and years, there's still triggers in there. I don't know if I've ever honestly talked to anyone that has completed their work. I guess you'd be translated if you did, right?
Well, I was going to say, I think that's part of the human journey and part of our ability to really allow ourselves to transform and to grow and to expand. And at the end of the day, the universe itself, we're told, right? Quantum physics is constantly expanding, and part of the way that is expanded is by us as individuals allowing the personal expansion of ourselves. And you're right, when people get stuck in a fear mindset or, the self-doubt or the limiting beliefs, that can absolutely keep you playing small at a time when really you would be better served and you would be better serving humanity if you were willing to just allow yourself that expansion.
Yeah. Well, and look at people that you admire that are successful and study them. Like, interview them, ask them. If you ask the right questions, you can learn so much more in life, and that was my challenge for so long. And I still struggle with it, coming up with the right questions to ask people that'll move me forward. And either it's in my personal life or my business life, but always be willing to learn, whether it's reading, you can do audio, you listen to podcasts. We have all this technology at our fingertips. Are you always doing personal development? Like, if you're not growing in that aspect.
Well, you know what they say, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? If you're not spiraling up, you're spiraling down. And I love what you just said, because it really, right now, we have this little thing in our hands called a smartphone, and we can Google or YouTube anything we want to learn. So it's the best time ever to be able to get the information that you want at your fingertips. Although I'm also a huge fan, and I know that you are, of getting the right mentorship. right? There is always going to be somebody that knows a little bit more, or if nothing else, they can help us see our blind spots. And I feel that, part of what you do is you help people identify some of the things that maybe they're not seeing because they're so close to their own selves.
Yes. You know what's helped me, because I've already paid, tens and tens of thousands of dollars for coaching. And I can honestly say I've outgrown every coach. That's a great feeling because it means I'm moving forward, right? And the mastermind really has been what's been powerful for me recently. I have 2 different groups of women that I work with, and they're not big, So I have my own that I've created that just started this year. And so I have like a year-long mastermind program. And it can be all levels of people in business because you don't know what they know and who they know. And that's the power of the mastermind, coming together with like-minded people who want to move everything forward with ideas to bounce off. Because even if my friend Jane is giving Jill, ideas, I'm still learning because I'm like thinking in my mind, how can I apply that advice to what I'm doing? Or how can I help get more ideas based on what their idea was to them? And so that's been really powerful for me. So even paid masterminds, that's as good as coaching. There's a lot of people that are offering that right now. And I mean, it's a group setting. So if you need some one-on-one, hire a one-on-one, but boy, I would sure interview. I mean, I've hired coaches that I just signed up because of the hype at an event. And that always wasn't the best choice. It was maybe an okay choice for me then, but it may not have been the best choice. So if you're going to spend the money, really do your due diligence.
I think that's a great piece of advice because one of the things that we're finding right now is all of a sudden everyone's become a coach, right? Everyone's become a coach, everyone's become a mentor, everyone's become an advisor. And there are people who have really spent the time and the effort to become trained in that vocation. And there are also people who may not have had the resources to become formally trained who are also excellent. So I love what you just said, which is it's going to be unique to you and what you need and what phase of life you're finding yourself in that is going to really attract that mentor, attract that coach, attract that team of people. And masterminds are an absolute brilliant way to help get yourself ahead. I think that's fantastic. Tell us a little bit about your mastermind group.
So I have an event called Prosperity, and I do it every 6 months in Las Vegas, Nevada. The next one's November 1st and 2nd of 2019. And I shifted up how I do things, at different times. But it's definitely, we do a lot of gamification. It's a really fun event. It's not, people don't come and sell all day from stage. It's not about that. It's about, motivating and connecting people, collaboration. So what I do is model everything I do. I want to be in alignment. Whatever I teach is how I live my life. If you go to my Facebook page, it's transparent. Like, that's just how I roll. What you see is what you get. I don't do behind the scenes crap. That's how I am. And so that's how the event is. When we're there, what you see is what you're going to get when you sign up. So we model the mastermind at lunch. Everybody stays there. We have it catered in. And then I have influencers that come to the event and they're table leaders. And so they run the masterminds for 60 minutes, both days at lunch. So you get a little bit of a taste of what it's like and how powerful it can be with just strangers that you walked in with, that day. Because we don't want people that know each other to sit at the same table. We want you to meet new people because it's about collaborating. And so what I'm doing at this one, though, is bringing visibility to those speakers that are coming. So I have influencers and speakers, and I'm creating a sizzle reel for them there, their raw footage, so that they can get on more stages. And we have a book that I'm doing, we'll be launching. So we'll do red carpet and book signings. And it's a super fun, like I said, a lot of gamification event.
Amazing. That sounds like a lot of fun. If people want to find out more, where can they go? How do they find you?
ProsperityEvents.com.
ProsperityEvents.com. I love that you own that URL. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm good about grabbing those.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I have a bit of a theory, and I feel you can appreciate this one. As human beings, we are in my opinion, obligated to share our unique brilliance, our own genius, understand what it is that we've been given with respect to the gift. And sometimes for some people it's musicals, for some people it's spatial. They're just these engineering, architectural geniuses. For some others it's communication. When we can identify what comes naturally to us, what fuels our passion, what gets us excited, then again, I think we get to a place where we're just happier as people and we're able to share that. And what I love about what you're doing is it's almost like passing the baton. You know, you mentioned that you had a lot of mentorship and a lot of coaching. You put a lot of investment into your own development. And, you know, at the time you were reaching your hand up to be supported by those that were a few steps ahead. Now, because of the dedication that you've put in to your own self-development and personal transformation, you're in a position where you're now the one a few steps ahead of someone else, extending your hand back. And really, at the end of the day, it's sort of our opportunity to help each other move a few steps forward by extending our hand back. And so I thank you for extending your hand and your genius and your brilliance in all of your platforms. Tell us a little bit about your podcast. How can someone tune in and how can they find you? How can they join as a guest?
Yeah. Well, you can email me at holly@hollyporter.com with a Y, HOLLY. And I always say, because it's why, because it's not about I, it's about you. So if you want to go to the website, it's Holly Porter, or it's just hollyporter.com. And the email is holly@hollyporter.com. Wow. Tongue-tied. And you can get on there and check it out and see. I mean, it's Prosperity Profilers Podcast. Of course, it's on iTunes and you know, SoundCloud and Google Play and all those.
Perfect. All those massive ways that we can support and find each other. Holly, what's one piece of advice you'd give people going into 2020 with respect to waking up in the morning and feeling prosperous?
Ooh. You know, if you feel like you're struggling with really who you are, you know, I think we all struggle from, you know, self-image and confidence issues off and on in our life. I think just figuring out what makes you tick. Because when you know why you do the things you do, and then learn why maybe other people do the things they do, look how much life can be, I mean, just so much more enjoyed, and it'll be so much easier understanding if you realize that, you know, if you realize your energy is not, you know, you're an introvert, for instance, then you know you're going to get exhausted when you get around big crowds, more than likely. You've got to learn how to manage that. So I think just figuring out how you work will make you more successful and prosperous, because you'll know. I mean, I teach Close the Gap to Prosperity, and I have 8 different things that I share with people on how they can do that in my programs. And so, you know, when one of those are off, you have a gap. I use the infinity sign. You have a gap. So I help people close the gap, and that's how you become more prosperous.
Well, you are the prosperity profiling queen, and we thank you for your time today. I think that's fantastic. Any parting words for our audience before we let you go?
Oh boy, just keep figuring it out. If you haven't yet, then get the right mentors and get the right people in place in your life and get rid of all the drama. Like, that would be the first thing I'd say to do. Move forward. Take action. Take action,
move forward. And we thank you for moving forward with us today, Ms. Holly Porter. You can go find out more at hollyporter.com. And again, her podcast is Prosperity Profilers Podcast with Holly Porter. Holly, thank you for being with us today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, and we appreciate you at home for tuning in every Thursday with us here at LA Talk Radio and TV. I'm your host, Katerina Kazayas. We thank our special guest, Holly Porter, for today, and we will see you again next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye now.
Thank you for listening to Prosperity Profiles Podcast, sponsored by Prosperity Profilers, LLC, helping you look prosperous, feel prosperous, and be prosperous. We hope you enjoyed our time together, and we'll visit again soon. You can learn more about Prosperity Profilers by going to hollyporter.com.